This is a TCT Public Report, a look at the issues and events of interest and importance to our viewing area. Here is our host for the show, Jim Solomon.
Hello again. Thank you for the time you're giving us to allow us to come in your home and share with you important information. We have come into your house today for the purpose of improving your lifestyle. And the information that we have for you today comes from a lady by the name of Barbara Dewey. And recently Barbara Dewey was with us and we discussed the yeast connection. And just for the sake of Barbara's credentials, she's a graduate of Central Michigan University, and she was a public school teacher, then moved into the area of diet and weight loss control, and she's a nutritionist. And so we'd like to welcome you again to the program today.
Thank you.
And appreciate you coming back to be with us. The last time you were here, we talked about the yeast connection. Would you share just a little bit with us what is the yeast connection and how it relates? We're going to be talking today about the food connection, so there's a definite connection. Would you share with us a little bit about what is the yeast connection and how it moves over into the area of our food, our diet?
Well, it's really important that this information gets out, Jim. That's why I'm here today. Because I suffered with this. I'm 48 years old, and I suffered most of my life with this Candida albicans, this yeast connection. And I already talked about it in the other program, so today I'm just going to give a nutshell interpretation of what it is. What it is really is overuse and abuse of antibiotics, you see. And like I said, the antibiotics kill all the good bacteria and all the bad bacteria, and you're left with this fungal infestation of your digestive tract. And it manifests itself in a lot of different ways. You can have headaches. I had super fatigue, cravings for sweets and starches, and irritability. And but the fatigue was the worst, and there's a lot of different symptoms that are mentioned, and they're all found in this book called The Yeast Connection by William Crook, M.D.
A person may not think that they're craving something. What do you define as craving for something? Like a person may say, well, I can take it or leave it, or I don't eat that much, but what do you qualify as a craving for sweets or starches?
Well, say you eat one cookie and you want another, or a piece of cake, and we say we sliver a cake to death, or pie to death, or maybe it's bread, or maybe it's macaroni, white flour products. Maybe you'll have to eat 6 pieces of toast, and you just can't stop, and you don't want to eat them, but you can't help yourself, you see. And people know if they've got cravings, believe me.
We call them, I just love the taste of it, but it's more than just loving the taste. You're saying that there's actually almost a dependency upon it.
That's right. And these yeast, see, it's the fungus in your digestive system, and I say it's something like Pac-Man living inside you, see, or it's something like a tapeworm living inside you that it wants to be fed. The big yeast break off, the little yeast break off the big yeast, and then they want to be fed, and so your body sets off this craving. It's a survival of the fittest. The yeast want to survive. They're a parasite.
Well, then the solution to it is changing our diet, and so why don't we go through some of our cards we have today, and let's just take a look at possibly some of the foods that we can eat to help deal with this Candida albicans fungus that is in many of our bodies.
Candida albicans. Right, well, it's more complicated. Food is very important, but there also has to be some sort of fungicide that you take, either from your doctor, or there are at the health food store has different things that you can take. And I have this information before we forget too. If people will write and ask me for the information on the yeast later on, my address is going to be on, and they can write, and I will send them the diet and the different things that they have to do to get rid of it. But first of all, they should get the book, The Yeast Connection. And
who's that?
By William Crook, M.D. It's in most of the books, so they can order it for you if they don't have it. Foods you can eat. This is really important. Now, this is not a permanent thing, you see, although you should really get rid of sugar and bad eating habits, or you're going to have this yeast back again. But while you're trying to get rid of the yeast, you eat these things, all fresh vegetables, and, steamed and frozen, and then meats, fish, and eggs, water, unprocessed oils. If you don't have a weight problem, you can eat nuts and seeds, and then whole grains and brown rice, old-fashioned oats, barley, eat rice cakes. And but what shouldn't you eat? Well, food you should avoid, and we're going to talk about this in the rest of the program too, because as a nutritionist, we're really abusing these foods. But anyway, processed and packaged foods. It says Oreos and vanilla wafers and so many processed things full of sugar. Condiments, for example, did you know that ketchup is a third sugar? And yeast,
one-third ketchup is sugar.
Right, refined sugar. Yeast breads, because you've already got enough yeast in you, so they have to be avoided for a while. Pastries, mushrooms, because mushrooms are a fungus. Milk and milk products at first, except for plain yogurt. Coffee and tea, we're going to find out also that it is an addictive substance, both of them, and that they really should be avoided if you want the best health. And then brewer's yeast. I used to try to take brewer's yeast for energy and felt worse, and I never knew why. For a while, you have to avoid fruit, because the yeast will feed on that if they're not getting your sugar. It's not a permanent thing. It's just temporarily till you get rid of most of them. Fruit juice is the same thing. Malt products are a sugar-based product. Dried and candied fruits, the same thing, high in sugar. Alcoholic beverages, both yeast and sugar in them. And processed and smoked meats and luncheon meats, sugar-cured ham, sugar-cured bacon. And the biggest offender of all, sugar and sugar-containing foods.
Let me ask an important question. I think that there are probably viewers saying, well, I don't want to have to totally change my diet to the point where I never eat any of these things. Now, are you saying that, number one, that we should totally abstain from eating of these, or are you saying that for a cleansing, to cleanse us from our body, to totally abstain for a while and then gradually use them in a very how should I say, disciplined manner? Or are you saying totally remove them from our diets?
At this point, I'm talking about how to get rid of the yeast. But like I said, if you want to get reinfested again, and we're going to talk about also about nutrition, about taking care of our bodies. See, like I said, people want to do what they want to do to their bodies, and then they want the doctor to give them some magic pill that will make them all better again, where we're responsible for our own health. We're responsible for taking care of our bodies. The blame lays right here.
Well, how much does sugar have a part in your life? You mentioned in your life how that you had problems with overeating and whatnot in our last program. Why don't you share with us a little bit today about how sugar played a part in your diet and how it affected you in such a negative way?